Good afternoon, it's Bev at Planet Crochet. I've been looking at some of my old videos, and I mean when I started 3 years ago on YouTube, and I feel I need to just go over a couple of them. One of them is the traditional granny square. Anyway, what you'll need is yarn, hook, scissors and needle. So the hook corresponds with the yarn. On your band, this is a cake because I've had a small amount left and I made a little cake. Now on the band it will say needle, it'll show you a knitting needle. If there's no crochet hook, still go to what the size says. Usually for a double knit it's a 4mm, and that's what I'm going to use today. I always start with a magic circle. If you want to know how, I have a small video on showing you how to do that. But for now, I've already made the magic circle and I've got chain 3. When I chain on the next subsequent rounds, I will only do 2. And that's my personal preference. You can do 3, but I do 2. The first round is in groups of 3. The chain 3 is your first treble. And this is UK terminology. You want 2 more treble. Now, choice is yours. For a corner, you can use 2 chain or 3. I looked back on my old video, I put 2. But if you want to do 2, and if the pattern calls for 2, do 2. Chain 3. Now this is not the normal yarn I use for my demonstration purposes. It's something I had left, so it's a little bit rough. I'm not keen on this. Chain 3 again, and then 3 more treble. All 4 sides done. Last chain 3, you can pull the middle a little bit tighter. I don't do it too tight until I've done. Top of the chain 3, slip stitch. Now, as this is a traditional granny, I found out the hard way when I was changing colours. I was doing a rainbow blanket a few years ago. I just continued going round and round. I would say that's the right side facing, with the tail at the back, the wrong side. And when I went round and round, when I'd finished, I hadn't noticed until I came to join them, they was all off. And that's because I didn't turn the last round. So every time you do a round, flip it. On the last one, I don't do it too tight, I do it a little bit loose. So you can flip your work, then do your chains, or you can chain, like I say, I chain 2, turn my work, and then continue. Or another one I do is, that's why I say don't do it too tight, flip your work, go into that chain 3 and slip stitch. It's just options, and then carry on. In a corner you want 3 treble, 3 chain, 3 treble. Bunch it up a little bit. Chain 3. Now another option you can do is chain 1 between each corner. Some patterns don't call for that, but I have read a lot of patterns that do. Oops, a daisy. If you want to know how to make these cakes as well, I've got a short video on that, and you can get the contraption from Amazon. Chain 3 and 3 treble, and do that all the way around. I'll meet you back at the beginning. Don't forget, you're going to turn your work. I'll do it this way this time. Chain 2, turn your work, 3 treble, 2 treble, sorry. There's your first group, chain 1, and then you do a corner as you've done before, which is 3 treble, 3 chain, or whatever the pattern calls for. Might say 2 chain. And also, even if you're going to do into designing and doing yourself, you might say you want to put 3 in there. So sometimes it's what it looks like and how it lays. Sometimes when I first started putting a chain 1 between each group of 3, I didn't do, and it kind of bunched it up a little ways, and I didn't like it. So now I more than not always put a chain in between each group of 3, even if the pattern doesn't call for it, just because it gives it that little bit more space. So you want to do this all the way around. Just finish this corner. Again, whatever your pattern says, whether you had a chain 1 in between each group of 3. So you want to do this all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the beginning. There you go, round 3. We'll do one more round on this video. Up to you again, your choice. 1, 2, turn your work, and then do your 2 treble. Chain 1, and then you're back to your corner. Now normally I use Stylecraft yarn. This is one I just picked up to do a project for a friend because I wanted a particular sky colour, and the one I wanted in Stylecraft I couldn't get at the time. It seems to be a popular colour because I try and buy from a local store here in Yorkshire, and they didn't have any. So I found this in another store, but it's slightly, for me, it's under par compared to Stylecraft. It's not as soft, it's quite rough. So there you go. You just need to do your 3 groups of treble, chain 1, and repeat. Get to your corner, 3 treble, 3 chain, or if the pattern calls for 2, and it may do that for a reason, may not want them as big because it does make it slightly, just makes it slightly a little bit bigger, but not a lot. And I find, personal choice again, that they lay nice and flat. Now I'm going to show you, after we've done all the way around, how I sew in the tail at the end. There you go. Now depending on how many rounds the pattern asks you to do, or what you want to do, you're doing something yourself, you can keep going and make a square blanket. Or a lot of patterns I've done in the past call for 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 4 rounds, etc. What I do is I leave the inside, the beginning tail there until I've finished all my squares. When I've done all the squares, I know I want that on the inside of a garment, depending on what you're making, or a blanket on the underside. So finish all your squares, then sew your tails in, and you know that's the wrong side. And another tip, I haven't got one on me, but if you've got stitch markers, I generally, if I'm not 100% certain which is the right and wrong side of a crochet piece, especially if I'm making by baby cardigans, I will put a stitch marker on the right side, and then I know all my sewing in work will go on the wrong side. because some cardigans I do have been broken the yarn and then rejoined, and I don't want the sewing on the right side to be shown. Just a tip. I'm going to break that off. Right. We'll do the sewing in of the beginning tail. Thread your needle. You want to go the way how it's pulling, so you're going clockwise. If you're left-handed, no doubt you'll be going the other way. What I like to do is go at least 2 groups of 3 first. Now you want to pull snug, but you don't want to pull too tight, because once the crochet piece has been washed, as I found out from a blanket I did, it can either, if you don't do a long enough tail or too tight, it can snap and pull out. Then you have to do a repair. So you want it snug, but not too snug. I'm going to go into the 3rd one. And then I go back on myself. So just pick up where the first treble is. Make sure you don't go through to the front. You can feel it with your fingers. And come up some ways. And do that over a couple of trebles. You know the groups, I mean. And then sometimes I'll come up in the middle of a group. Pull it again. And if you put your fingers like sandwich the middle, you can feel it. And go back the other way. When I first started, I watched a couple of YouTube different channels, and they do things different ways, and I've found my own way of doing things. I always go at least one way back, double on myself. On there I did 3 ways. Now I couldn't have that face showing for me personally, because there is where I double backed on myself, and I don't like that. And that's why I say if you can leave it till the end, because with a granny, going backwards and forwards, flipping your work, it doesn't matter which way it's facing out, as long as all your sewing in is on the back side. Now, I'm going to insert a picture somewhere in the video of that changing colours, the rainbow blanket in the granny, and how it twisted. And then you'll see why flipping your work stops that. If you're doing a solid, it probably wouldn't make any difference. But definitely changing colours, you want to flip your work every time. Anyway, that's me, Bev at Planet Crochet. I'll catch you in another video. But for now, bye.